My name is Thomas, and I have been a priest for over 2 decades. During this time, I have dedicated myself not only to religious celebrations and the spiritual support of the community, but also to the field of exorcisms, an area that few understand. My life took a dramatic turn when my sister Sophia was brutally murdered while on her way to visit me at the parish. Sophia was everything to me, a light in my life. The man who killed her claimed in court to be possessed by a demon, and to this day, he is confined in a psychiatric hospital. This tragic event was a turning point in my life. Before, I had already performed some exorcisms, but Sophia's death made me delve even deeper into this field, seeking answers and justice. Every exorcism I perform is an attempt to understand and combat the evil that took my sister from me. My routine is now intensely focused on the battle against evil. During the day, I conduct masses and offer spiritual support to the faithful. At night, I am often called to face entities that many prefer to believe do not exist. These battles require all my faith and courage, each one a painful reminder of Sophia's loss. Loneliness has been a constant in my life since the tragedy. I use my work as a way to cope with the pain, but the nights are especially difficult, filled with memories and silent prayers for strength to continue my mission. On one specific night, after an exhausting mass, I sat in my small office at the parish to check my emails. Among the usual messages from the community, one email in particular caught my attention. The sender had a familiar but impossible address: my deceased sister, Sophia's email. My heart raced as I clicked on the message, trying to understand what was happening. The message was short and disturbing. "Thomas, I'm alive. I need to see you." Below these words was a link to a GPS location. When I clicked the link, the map revealed a location I immediately recognized: the St. Agatha Sanatorium, deactivated just a year or two ago. This was the place where the man who killed Sophia had initially been confined before being transferred to another psychiatric hospital. It was impossible that Sophia was alive. The idea of someone using her email to play a cruel joke was disturbing. Who would do something so cruel? And why? I thought someone might have hacked her account or found a way to send messages using her address. The fact that the location was a sanatorium only reinforced the idea that someone was perversely toying with me. I decided to investigate the origin of the email, but all my efforts led to dead ends. There were no clear traces or logical explanations. The image of the St. Agatha Sanatorium kept surfacing in my mind. Recently abandoned, the place had a reputation for being haunted by forces beyond human understanding. Initially, I thought it was just a very bad joke. The mere mention of that place, associated with Sophia's name, made a dark premonition settle in my heart. Someone was stirring up painful memories, and I needed to find out who and why. I ignored the first email, convinced it was a cruel prank. However, a few days later, a new email arrived, again from Sophia's address. This time, there was something even more disturbing. Sophia mentioned a secret that only we knew, an intimate moment we shared when we were children. This left me deeply unsettled. Who, besides Sophia and I, could know this detail? Doubt and restlessness grew inside me. Perhaps there was something more to that message. I decided I needed to investigate the mentioned location. The next morning, I took the car and drove to the St. Agatha Sanatorium, the same place where the man who killed Sophia had been confined. The road was long and winding, leading me to a remote part of the city that seemed forgotten by time. I arrived at the sanatorium at dusk. The building's facade was imposing and macabre, with broken windows, moss-covered walls, and vegetation taking over the place. The building, deactivated just a year or two ago, exuded a sense of abandonment and decay. Large rusty gates blocked the main entrance, locked with thick chains. I decided to look for another entrance. I walked around the building, looking for an alternative entrance, until I found an opening in the fence. Carefully, I squeezed through the rusty wires. With a flashlight in hand, I advanced through the debris-covered and trash-strewn ground. As I approached the sanatorium, the atmosphere grew darker. Fragments of broken glass glittered on the ground, reflecting the flashlight's light. The building's facade was imposing and macabre, with broken windows and moss-covered walls. I decided to enter through a side door that was ajar. The interior of the building was even more desolate. Every step echoed through the empty hallways, increasing the sense of isolation. I felt a sinister presence, as if the sanatorium itself was watching my arrival. No matter how much I tried to rationalize the situation, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something was very wrong. As I advanced through the dark hallways of the sanatorium, the light from my flashlight revealed a scene of complete abandonment. The walls were covered in graffiti and moss, and pieces of plaster fallen from the ceiling were scattered on the floor. Old rusty medical equipment was left in corners, along with abandoned wheelchairs and overturned hospital beds. The smell of mold and dampness was almost unbearable, and the heavy air made every breath an effort. Suddenly, I heard a soft, familiar voice, almost a whisper, calling my name. Thomas. My heart raced, and I stopped for a moment, trying to discern where the sound was coming from. Sophia's voice seemed to echo through the hallways, guiding me through that dark labyrinth. I moved forward, following the direction of the sound, my steps echoing on the broken and dirty linoleum floor. As I walked, flashes of painful memories invaded my mind. I remembered the happy moments I spent with Sophia, her laughter, our deep conversations, and the dreams we shared. These memories painfully contrasted with the last time I saw her, in her coffin. My breath became heavy, and my eyes filled with tears, but I kept moving forward. Sophia, where are you? My voice sounded weak and uncertain. The answer came in the form of more whispers, increasingly distant, leading me deeper into the darkness. The hallways seemed to narrow, and shadows danced sinisterly on the walls. The environment was laden with an oppressive sense of sadness and despair, as if the building itself was impregnated with the suffering of its former occupants. Each step was an effort to control my emotions. The pain of losing Sophia, the confusion about the messages, and the fear of the unknown mixed within me. I knew I had to continue, even without knowing exactly what I was looking for. Sophia's voice was my only guide in that desolate place, and the hope of finding some truth drove me to move forward, despite the growing terror. Sophia's voice continued to guide me through the dark hallways of the sanatorium. Each step increased the discomfort that permeated the environment. The shadows on the walls seemed to move almost imperceptibly, and the silence was interrupted only by the echo of my own footsteps. The flashlight in my hand trembled slightly, reflecting my growing confusion and anxiety. As I advanced, the hallways became narrower and more oppressive. The heavy, humid air made breathing difficult, and the feeling of being watched grew more intense. My heart pounded, but not out of fear. Years of facing the supernatural had prepared me for situations like this. However, the presence of Sophia, or what seemed to be Sophia, was beyond any training. Finally, Sophia's voice led me to a heavy metal door, marked by deep scratches and demonic symbols that I recognized from my readings. I hesitated for a moment before opening the door, feeling a mix of confusion and determination. Experience told me that something was very wrong, but the possibility of finding answers about Sophia drove me to move forward. As I entered, the sight before me was disturbing. The room looked like a ritualistic cell, with demonic symbols drawn with terrifying precision on the walls and floor. Black candles, partially melted, were arranged in a pattern that suggested an ancient invocation ritual. In the center of the cell, in a protective circle drawn with salt, was Sophia. She looked exactly as I remembered, with the same soft smile and delicate features that always characterized her. Her hair was styled as she always wore it, and her posture was the same as before, as if time had not passed. The sight of her there, in that macabre place, made my heart race. Sophia? My voice came out trembling, unable to hide the mix of hope and doubt. She smiled, a smile I would recognize anywhere. Thomas, you finally arrived. Her words were soft, but carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Everything seemed real, and at the same time, something was terribly wrong. The presence of the demonic symbols around her made me uneasy. I knew I had to stay calm and understand what was really happening. The impact of seeing her there, after so long, left me shaken. I felt a mix of relief at seeing her alive and determination to uncover the truth. Memories of happy moments together flooded my mind, and the pain of loss was temporarily replaced by hope. But my experience as an exorcist told me that nothing there was as it seemed. "Sophia, what is happening? How can you be here?" I approached her, feeling a mix of relief and determination. The reality of that situation defied all my understanding, but my faith and training as an exorcist kept me focused. I needed to uncover the truth behind that vision, balancing the hope of reuniting with my sister with the certainty that something was very wrong. But there was something off in her posture, a subtle rigidity that didn't match the Sophia I knew. "Sophia, are you really here?" I asked, doubt permeating my voice. She nodded slowly, her movements almost mechanical. "Yes, Thomas, I'm here. I never left." As I watched her, I noticed small inconsistencies. Her gestures, though familiar, seemed rehearsed, and her words had a strange tone. The atmosphere around her, laden with demonic symbols, only heightened my suspicion. My training as an exorcist had taught me to recognize the signs of possession, and it was clear that something was very wrong. Moreover, the painful memory of her funeral made me question the reality of what I was seeing. I tried to convince myself that it was real, that Sophia was somehow alive and in front of me. But the oppressive presence around me, the feeling of something evil, and the visible evidence of demonic rituals made it impossible to ignore the truth. That's when I realized I was dealing with a demon's trick. "Sophia, what do you want from me?" My voice came out firmer, determination replacing the initial confusion. Her features began to distort almost imperceptibly, and the smile turned into a malicious expression. "Don't you recognize me, Thomas? She is no longer here." Sophia's figure began to twist unnaturally, and her voice changed, taking on a deep and threatening tone. The shadows in the room seemed to come to life, enveloping the figure before me. Her skin began to darken, her eyes became hollow, and an aura of pure malevolence emanated from her. Claws emerged from her hands, but she still maintained her human form. "I am Abaddon," the creature growled, its voice reverberating through the walls. "Don't you remember me? I was there when Sophia was murdered. It was my influence that led that man to kill her. Now, she is with me in hell, and my mission is to bring you too, so that we can all be together." The demon gave a cruel smile. "You have faced me before, Thomas. Those moments of darkness, the battles you fought, it was always me. Every time you thought you had won, I was just waiting for the right moment. And now, I have Sophia. She suffers with me, and you will be next." The vision of Sophia possessed deeply shook me, but my experience allowed me to stay calm. Every detail of the possession, from the darkening of her skin to the transformation of her hands, reinforced the certainty that I was facing a powerful and perverse force. I gripped the rosary tightly, beginning to recite the exorcism prayers. "Exorcismus te, omnis immundus spiritus." The words came out firm, despite the growing sense of oppression around me. Abaddon growled, its presence filling the room with a malignant energy. The shadows seemed to writhe and dance, as if the very environment was responding to my challenge. Suddenly, I felt a crushing pressure in my mind. Images of Sophia, distorted and painful, flooded my vision. I saw scenes from the past, happy moments turned into grotesque nightmares. "Thomas, you failed her," whispered a sinister voice, trying to infiltrate my thoughts. "She is lost because of you." I fought against the mental invasion, focusing on the prayers and the faith that sustained me. "In nomine Patris et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti." But the battle was far from easy. I felt myself being pulled into an abyss of doubts and despair. The pressure in my head was intense, as if they were trying to tear away my memories and sanity. Then, The environment around me began to distort. The walls of the sanatorium dissolved, and I was transported to another place. We were in our childhood home, sunlight filtering through the windows. The familiar smell of fresh bread enveloped me, but something was wrong. Sophia was there, but her expression was vacant, full of malice. She lunged at me, trying to attack. "Thomas, you abandoned me," she screamed, her words cutting deep. "You weren't there to protect me." My mind struggled to accept what I was seeing. "It's not real," I murmured to myself, trying to stay sane. I gripped the rosary tighter, reciting the sacred words like a mantra. "Sancte Michael Arcangele, defend nos in proelio." The words anchored me in reality, but the confusion was overwhelming. The vision changed again. And now, I was in the hospital, by Sophia's deathbed. The pain in her eyes was real, but there was something distorted and evil in her face. The sound of life support machines turned into a sinister buzzing. "You cannot change the past," Abaddon's voice echoed, trying to break my resistance. "She died because of you." I used all the knowledge of exorcisms I had accumulated over the years to resist the demon's attacks. My words were an anchor, a light in the darkness trying to consume me. Sanity was a battlefield, and each word was a weapon against the demon trying to break me. Back in the sanatorium, the pressure in my mind began to ease. The environment around me solidified again, but the oppression was still palpable. "Abaddon, you will not defeat me," I declared with renewed conviction. "By the power of Christ, I command you to leave." The words echoed with a force that seemed to shake the very foundations of the place. Abaddon roared in anger, its attempts to manipulate my mind failing. Each attempt at possession was repelled by the shield of my faith and determination. I knew the battle was far from over, but each moment of resistance strengthened me. Sophia's figure began to waver, as if the demon's connection to her was weakening. The demon lunged at me, trying to knock me down with supernatural force. I felt a violent impact, but remained steadfast, anchored by faith and determination to save Sophia. The air around me seemed electrified, each word of the exorcism resonating with power. The battle was intense, each of Abaddon's attempts to possess me or break my sanity being repelled by the sacred words. I could see Sophia's figure wavering, as if the demon's connection to her was weakening with each moment. "In the name of Christ, I expel you, evil spirit. Leave this soul in peace." My voice echoed with renewed strength. Abaddon let out a scream of agony, its form contorting. I continued, my voice clear and strong. "Sancte Michael Arcangele, defende nos in proelio, contra nequitiam, et insidias diaboli, esto praesidium." Each word seemed to disintegrate the darkness, pushing the demon away. Finally, the connection broke. Sophia's body rose in a final spasm, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and relief. I saw the transformation begin slowly, her flesh disintegrating into ashes, blown by a breeze that seemed to come from nowhere. First, her hands began to dissolve, the skin turning into fine dust. Then, her arms and legs followed, until her torso and head also disintegrated. "Sophia," I cried, feeling a mix of relief and pain as I watched her disappear. The sight of her disintegration was both tragic and liberating. The demon was expelled, its presence dissolving into darkness. The room fell silent, the oppression gradually dissipating. I fell to my knees, exhausted but triumphant. The battle was over, and Sophia was finally free. Her ashes, scattered on the floor, were a testament to the victory against Abaddon. As silence took over the room, a sense of peace began to spread. The shadows retreated, and the light from my flashlight seemed brighter. I looked at Sophia's ashes with a mix of sadness and relief. She was free, but the pain of her loss was still deep. The vision of her final transformation would be forever etched in my memory. I rose slowly, feeling the weight of the battle in every muscle, and whispered a final prayer for her soul. "May you find peace, my sister." The mix of emotions was overwhelming: relief for her liberation and sorrow for her absence. The faith that sustained me during the battle now comforted me as I faced the reality of her ultimate loss. I took a deep breath, thanking God for the strength and faith that upheld me. Each breath was a step towards acceptance and the hope that Sophia was finally at peace.